We're gonna talk about how to carry stuff, and as well as kind of what to carry, how to pick certain things, optics, guns, all that kind of stuff really quickly, okay? We started off the day talking about medical, so I want to bring up a couple things with that. How do I actually carry this gear on my person? Obviously, we talked about, you know, can I take a tourniquet or a gauze pack and shove it in a pocket or a cargo pocket or whatever? Yeah, I probably can, right? But there's some other options that may make things a little bit easier on you. This right here is a pretty cool kit from our friends at Live the Creed. Guys, I'm going to mention a few things throughout this block, some of which we have relationships with these companies, some of which we do not. Just so you know, the way that we do kind of sponsorships or partnerships is I won't even entertain a conversation with the company unless it's something that I'm already using. I've already bought it and I already know it's good, right? So if there's something I'm already using and recommending you guys and they want to come to us, give us, you know, a discount code to help you guys save some money, I'll accept that. But I don't just recommend products simply because people want to give us money, okay? So take that for what it's worth. This one, Live the Creed, it's like a wallet size kind of mini IFAK, right? When you pull this guy open, there's a couple cool things in here. Number one, they do have kind of a little boo-boo kit with, you know, band-aids and all the kind of stuff you actually need all the time, right? Which is can be kind of handy. They also have in here a SWAT T tourniquet. Now, like we talked about before, I strongly prefer having a windlass tourniquet that I'm going to carry, right? However, if for whatever reason I'm dressing in such a way, I'm in such kind of a scenario where I just cannot figure out a way to carry one of those, these do work, okay? This is like a giant rubber band thing. You have to make sure you're really stretching it hard. You can find videos from TCCC on how to use this. It is a TCCC approved tourniquet. They do work. They're not quite as easy and reliable as the windlass tourniquet. So I would prefer using those. But in something like this, I obviously can't fit a cat in here. So this is all I can carry. I would rather have this than nothing. So you've got your boo-boo kit. You've got your tourniquet, and then you also have your rubber gloves and your combat gloves. Okay, that's the way it comes with pre-stage with all of that gear if you buy it directly from Live the Creed. If you're the kind of person like I am that rolls with some kind of everyday carry bag that goes with you pretty much everywhere, your options do expand considerably. We also have a partnership with Vertex. This is the bag that I carry every day. One of the reasons I like about the Vertex bags, they have the tearaway section on the front where you can stow things like medical and get to them really, really quickly. So when I grab this handle and I rip this open, this is one of the things that I've started using here recently. This is just from Spiritus Systems. I got my cat tourniquet in here. I got my chest seals. I got my gauze. I've got my, I actually have a pack of regular gauze. I've got a pack of duct tape. And then I usually have my combat gauze. I pulled out to show you earlier, but I have my combat gauze in this bottom loop section. The cool thing about this and the way that it attaches, instead of just like bungee cording it into the molly or whatever, is that if I need to grab this and toss it to somebody or whatever, it all comes in one piece. Or if I just need to pull one section of it, I can do that. So that's one of the ways that I carry stuff every day in my Vertex bag. One other that I wanted to show you is this. This is an ankle kit from Riker Nylon. Okay, so it comes apart like this. In here right now, I have the tourniquet Garrett was showing you earlier, the SWAT T. I've got combat gauze. I've got my shears. I have a compression bandage, and then in the back, I have actually a sleeve for chest seals. Okay, this thing did not seem like a good idea until I tried it. It works really well. It does not work, you know, if you're one of those like skinny jean type guys, right? But if you wear, you know, normal man pants, then it works pretty well. I wear this with, you know, suits. On Sunday mornings, you know, I go to church, I do church security, I wear this thing. And it works just fine, right? Under normal pants, no one ever noticed you had anything on there. And I've got literally everything I would want in an IFAK in here, including shears, my chest seals, everything, right? Pretty comfortable. You forget you have it on. Works really well. So those are just some suggestions on carrying medical. Let's talk about rifles. Some of you guys are here in a duty capacity. You know, you may carry a rifle in a squad car or something. You know what you're doing there. When it comes to if I'm out and about and I need to have a rifle on my person for whatever reason, typically that's going to be secured in some way, and typically it's going to be in a bag to where it's not obvious to the general public. that I'm rolling with a rifle, right? A couple options for that. Again, we're partnering with Vertex, and they have some really cool options for discreet ways to carry rifles. This is typically the way you'll find me if I have a rifle with me and I'm out and about. This is the Commuter Sling 2.0. And the cool thing about this bag, it is a sling bag. Like all Vertex bags, they didn't stage it correctly, but there's a drag handle where I can pull this around in front. And basically, guys, the way this works is when I unzip this thing, I've just literally got the rifle that I was running in class this morning, my 10.5, in this bag using a law folder, okay? Now, if I'm gonna compactly carry a rifle, this is pretty much a required component. It's called the Law Tactical Folder and allows you to fold your stock, okay? There are other folders on the market. Do not buy them. If you're going to get a folder, get this one, okay? This is the one that works. This is super important because it actually changes the mechanics of how your rifle works. As you'll notice, my buffer tube is no longer attached to my rifle, and I now have a spacer here. There's actually a spacer that has to attach into my bolt carrier group to extend it, to interface with my buffer spring, which is now in my folder. If that's all not really right, your rifle's not gonna run, and obviously there's a lot of tension here that can happen when I'm slinging this thing open and closed. That latch breaks, all of a sudden I'm without my gun when I need it, right? So definitely get the law folder. They're a little bit hard to get because they're so popular. They're about 200 bucks, but if you're gonna do it, it's 100% worth it. So that's the first option. The cool thing with the Vertex sling bags as well is I now have options for armor, okay? I got an armor sleeve here, I've got an armor sleeve here, so I can technically run 2 plates and I've got really good coverage. Options for bag armor, I'd highly recommend you check out Premier. Premier has a lot of cool stuff now. I was just with them at SHOT Show as well. They've come out with some cool stuff. Garrett, they have a cooling material that goes in the inside of soft armor that somehow like pulls heat out from between your plates and the body and routes out the front. If that actually works the way they say it does, it's going to be really, really cool. They got a lot of cool stuff, but what they make is stuff specifically for bags. They will custom cut armor for Vertex bags and some of the other EDC bags on the market that actually fits your bag correctly. They got soft armor, they've got hard plates. This is rifle rated, this is obviously pistol rated.
Polyurethane?
Yeah, that's okay. What this would be. Yeah, I mean it's a combination of materials, right? But it's the typical composite. It's not steel plates, if that's what you're getting at. So you guys can check these out. These are super lightweight. I carry these in my EDC bag all the time. I fly with them. TSA never gives a crap about armor, by the way. You can fly with it, travel with it. You can always have armor in your bag, whether or not you can have anything else. The other option you might use for a bag, in the event you don't want to run a folder and you don't care about being super discreet, you can obviously run a sling bag, something like this. This is the larger sling bag from Vertex. Again, in something like this, I can fit, just a full rifle with the stock collapsed in here, as long as it's like, 11.5, 10.5, something that's fairly short in the bag. So that's another option for you guys if you want to run the full rifle. Any questions on kind of the bags or how about any of that stuff so far? Okay, let's talk about kind of picking a rifle. There is 1,000,001 different AR-15 companies on the market right now, and a lot of them are really good. To be honest, the AR-15 is not super complicated, and so as long as you have decent manufacturing standards and you understand those standards, you can make a decent rifle. You can start off with rifles that are fairly affordable. Trey already mentioned Smith & Wesson. The M&P Sport 2, great starter gun. Same thing kind of with Ruger and also Aero Precision or Ballistic Advantage. I have some of the Ballistic Advantage guns out here that you can get into for way under $1,000. All these guns I bring out, guys, and I kit these out specifically because they're set up for the things people want to try. So any of my guns you want to run today, just let me know. You're more than welcome to run those. As you kind of pick up, if you really want to get kind of like a duty grade gun, we're looking at BCM, Daniel Defense, ZevTech, brands like this. You're typically looking at more like $1,500 to get into a really solid rifle. Are there guns that are more expensive than that? Yes. Is there any reason for them to be more expensive than that? Not really. Not really, right? I'm not going to pay $3,000 for a Knight's Armament right now just because it's got that brand name on it. I'm just not. It's not going to do anything for me that these guns don't do. The partnership we have in this space with ZevTech, that's the guns I'm running in the course today. We have a discount code that help you with those, but there's still a premium rifle. It's going to run you, roughly $1,500 to get into one of those, even with the code. So just be aware of that. But there's lots of good rifles out there. If you have questions, let me know. Barrel lengths. Talk about barrel lengths really quickly. Obviously, longer barrels are going to give me more velocity and therefore better terminal ballistics with my round, generally speaking. However, that's not always the case. You know, the quality of the barrel that you're running and the kind of ammo that you're running obviously makes a difference there. I personally would not go in the AR-15 platform where we're shooting 5.56 below a 10.5. The 10.5 has been proven for a long time. The Mark 18's seen a lot of combat over the years and does a lot of good work. I run 10.5-inch barrels pretty commonly, and they work pretty well, even out at 200 yards, right? Get much shorter than that, and you're just getting well below what the AR-15 was designed to be, and the rounds just aren't doing what I want them to do. If I'm going shorter than that, I would generally start looking at something like a 300 blackout. So let's talk about barrel lengths in terms of CQB working in tight spaces. Okay, the consideration that a lot of folks have is that you cannot do that kind of stuff with a long barrel because you can't run it in tight spaces. I really beg to differ. Okay, bottom line is this, fellas: if I am running a rifle, where's my rifle go? Let's say I'm in a doorway, okay, and I've got a hallway here, and I'm going to come through this doorway, and I need to look down range. I don't care what rifle you're running. If it's at least a 10.5, it's not short enough that I can just come through this doorway without collapsing the rifle. I've got to pull it in one way or another. I've got to come barrel down and punch back out. I've got to come barrel up and punch out that way, or I've got to come over my shoulder and punch out. I've got to do that, right? So the fact of the matter is, do I have to move a little bit more with a long gun? Yes, I do. I do. However, is it actually costing me anything to have those extra 4 inches in my barrel? No, it's not. I can still run it exactly the same way. Now the consideration is, well, what if I'm adding a can to this now? And what if it's not a small can? So now I'm adding, an extra 6 inches to this. Now I have a 22-inch gun. Okay, now we have something to think about, right? But you can absolutely run, even up to a 16-inch rifle like this one, or a shorty, pretty much just the same way when it comes to those kind of things. That's just a consideration there for you. Consider what you want to do with the rifle. So here's the way I think about picking a barrel length. For me, I'm a pretty big guy. So I think about, hey, how long does the rifle have to be to where I can get my hand on the gun the way that I want it? So for me, when I run the gun, my ideal placement on the handguard is right about like this. This is the way I like to run my rifle, okay? When I do that, I have space in front of my hand for the things that I want to mount, which include generally a tape switch, a light, so on and so forth. So when I have my rifle set up the way that I want, I have room in front of my grip for all the stuff to go, and my light isn't, or whatever else I'm mounting isn't over top of my muzzle device getting pounded and stuff like that, right? So I will run a rifle that allows me to grip it the way that I want and mount whatever stuff that I need to, which might include front sights or lasers or whatever else, unless there's a mitigating requirement that requires me to go shorter, such as I want to fit it in a bag. Okay, well, guess what? Now I got to go down to a 10.5 or whatever the length is, right? So the first thing I figure out is, where do I want to grip the rifle? What do I need to mount in front of my hand? Are there any requirements that require me to go shorter? That make sense, everybody? Just the way I think about it. There's lots of different ways to think about it. Lots of good rifles that are lots of different lengths that all work. Okay? Just some considerations there. Let's talk about optics. This is probably the next question that I get all the time. There are lots of options here. Again, lots of companies making lots of good optics that all do work. Your simplest and most common option is quite simply some kind of LED red dot, right? Advantages to these, typically really great battery life and constant on. So I can leave this on all the time. If I've got something like an aim point, I can leave it on for years at a time and it's never gonna go off. So if this is, especially, it's a little bit, it's even more important if it's not a duty rifle. If this is a home defense rifle that I'm leaving in a closet or a safe or whatever until the moment that I need it, when I go to pull that thing out and I haven't touched it in 2 weeks, I really want it to be ready to go, right? So that's an advantage to having something that will stay on all the time, like a constant on red dot. The real competitor in this space is going to be something like a holographic, right? So we have the venerable EOTech as an example. People like these primarily because they were issued them and got used to them, right? They also really get to like the reticle. So a lot of times when we get to a holographic dot, we have different reticle options, such as the circle dot, okay? The reason why that's important, I can put a different reticle in an LED dot, but the reason that the holographic is used for that is because if I want to use that ring for range estimation or holds, it's super important that it is actually true to size. With my holographic, as I look through my optic, no matter where my optic is mounted, no matter what my stock length is, as I go like this, the reticle stays the same size compared to my target down range. It's some voodoo magic they put in these things, right? It's really cool. So when I punch the rifle out like this, my reticle is basically taking up my entire window on my optic, and when I pull it back like this, it's nice and small in the center. But compared to my target down range, it stayed the exact same size. So if I'm gonna use that big circle ring for anything, super important that's in a hollow. However, these have crappy battery life, right? So every single one of these on the market has an auto off feature, so if you leave it alone for a couple days, it's gonna be off and you're gonna have to turn it on when you come back. So it just depends whether or not you care about that, okay? The other consideration with particular optics, durability and so forth, lots of things to consider there. I tend to not be a huge fan of the EOTech. It has really short battery life, even with the auto off. If I was going to buy one, a hollow right now, it would probably be this guy. This one, this is something I've been playing around with for quite a while now. The Vortex UH1. Been pretty impressed with this so far. Similar reticle. I'm not a big fan of the circle dot reticle, but if you like that, that's an option for you. It's got better battery life and it's a lot cheaper. So that's something for you to consider. Now, after we get past that, we start thinking about magnification. Okay, why is magnification important? Magnification is not important to make you more accurate. It is to help you see stuff. Okay. So with this rifle right now, with no additional magnification, can I shoot steel plates at 200 meters all day, no problem? Yes, I can. Can I tell the difference between a pistol and a cell phone at 200 meters through this optic? Probably not. Okay, so it's about seeing stuff. Positive identification, target discrimination, all that's pretty important. And so if you're in a scenario where you are doing work, even at 100 meters, sometimes having that little bit of magnification is super important. We do a drill in our level 2 courses where we put photorealistic targets at 100 meters and have people shoot at them, and they can't tell what the bad guy is and what the good guy is a lot of times when they don't have magnification. So I have options. I took this off because when it's in my concealed carry bag, it's literally just tight enough. It doesn't actually fit with my magnifier on it. So I have a QD magnifier. I have magnifiers as an option. The cool thing about this is I can run my dot, and then whenever I just need magnification, I just flip this up, and now I've got 3 or 6x or whatever it is magnification, and I can see stuff better. I have not been a fan of magnifiers for a long time until this particular mounting solution became available, and the reason is it's super annoying to run a magnifier a lot of times with the normal flip to side mechanic. Because every time you go to do a transition, your rifle comes down, it flips back on when you don't want it, and it's kind of tough to control. It snags, just in the way a lot, right? I can't put this in a bag with the magnifier open because it's just going to get me to get closed. So it's just something you got to fiddle with. What Unity did is they came up with a pretty cool mounting solution that lifts the optic up high enough that I can now flip to center. So this just flips down below my optic when I'm running it. It's out of the way. I can see through my optic and I can run that. And then when I need it, it just flips right up. So that's a really cool solution if you're looking to run a magnifier. The other cool thing about this is it's actually high enough that I can use my iron sights underneath. So if I use a normal 193 mount, I have no backup sighting solution as far as normal irons. I have to use an offset. With this, I actually have built-in iron sights in this mount, or I can use normal flip-ups underneath of this mount, which is pretty cool. We'll talk about mounting heights in a second. So number one option, magnifiers. This is great if I'm using this rifle 99% of the time at CQB distances, and so I just want a normal unmagnified dot, but I just want that extra little bit of visibility, just in case I need to go to 100, 200 meters, something like that. Then this is a decent option, just having your magnifier, okay? If I need to do more than that, that's where our adjustable optics come in, such as our LVPOs like the Vortex, okay? Number one question I probably get across the internet: what is a good budget LVPO? I don't think there is one. Okay. Now let me clarify that. Is there a budget LVPO you could use for like hunting, right? Like as in a low power variable scope that you can set to 4 power, and then you can look through your scope and you can see your target and you can shoot it? Yes, absolutely. However, it is really hard to build an LVPO in such a way that I can use it with the same efficacy as a red dot up close, especially on things like target transitions and all that kind of stuff. Also have a daylight bright reticle that I can see even in full sun with the illumination. Also have clear enough glass that when I do jack it up, I can actually see things at distance, right? That's a lot of requirements, and it's pretty hard to do. For me personally, I know different folks have different opinions on this. I still say that if I was going to try to go budget, the cheapest one that I would buy is this one right here. This is the Vortex Gen 2 1:6. This is actually an incredible scope, and in some ways I prefer it to the Gen 3. Works really, really well. It is second focal plane, so it's not great for like long range precision stuff in some of those things, but it works really, really great up close. Solid optic, probably can get it for, you know, $1,100, something like that, right? Works really, really well. What I look for when I am trying to buy a scope, again, my order of operations is, number one, when I look through the scope, is there a forgiving eye box where I can throw the rifle up and I can see through it and not have to worry about, you know, I'm gonna have scope shadow every single time, or I'm gonna have to fish for my optic, right? Some eye boxes on these scopes are so tight that when I go to even do a transition, right, as I kind of move my head to look, like I lose my scope entirely. I don't want to have to deal with that. I want a forgiving enough eye box that I can be sure of just throwing the rifle up and being able to see through. I also want an illuminated reticle that looks like a red dot, again for close use, that I can turn this thing on, and even when it's in full brightness, I can see it. I had this problem with my EOTech Voodoo scopes. They were really, really cool, worked really well, except when the sun was out, you know? And then it was like, if I turn the illuminator on, I can almost see the reticle better with the illuminator off. The Vortex scopes are the huge advantage to those. I can turn this on, and when I look through the scope, it's literally like I have a red dot in the center of my scope. Works really, really well. Also want a reticle that makes sense, that I can use at distance for my holds and so forth. All that's super important. The scope works really, 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 really well. Again, this is second focal plane, so if you do want first focal plane, you can go up to the Vortex 110. This guy works really well. The eye box is slightly tighter than the 1:6, but it's still very, very usable. Incredible glass in here, great usable reticle, works really well at distance as well as up close. That's a great option for you. When you do run an LVPO, you know, think about secondary sighting systems. A is a backup, right? Something breaks. I see folks all the time running backup iron sights with their LVPO, and I'm like, how are you going to use that, bro? You know, are you going to sit here and unbolt the optic, you know, from your gun so you can use your iron sights? Now, you may run a QD mount, right? That makes a little bit more sense, such as the Bob Row. But what makes a whole lot more sense for me is having an offset dot, because this has multiple purposes. In the event something breaks on this, I can't use it, I'll lose 0. All I have to do, right, is go to my offset and I can run that. Or, let's say I'm going back and forth quickly between distances and I have this thing on 6 power, and all of a sudden, I need to deal with something up close. Instead of reaching up and having to dial, all I have to do is rotate and go back to my dot. So I have kind of both ready to go all at once. So that's kind of what I prefer there. It works really, really well. The next most common question I get is slings. I'll talk about sling setup first, then I'll give you a couple recommendations on different kind of slings. Traditionally, the recommendation that most folks would give you is to set up a sling something like this. Okay, we have 2 points. Back in the day, 1 points were a bigger thing, but the problem with a single point sling, I'll show you this in a second, it really just doesn't secure the rifle that well. And so guys would go to climb a fence or something, and all of a sudden, like, you're on one side of a fence and your rifle's on the other side of the fence, and you're like hanging from your rifle, right? The 2 point slings do a really good job of securing the rifle to your body and still letting you do what you need to do. What a lot of folks traditionally would recommend is set your sling up something like this, attached to your stock and attached to your forend. This is still a really good way to run your sling, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. When you attach it to your stock, you do want to attach it to the outside of the stock. If I attach it to the inside, it makes the stock hang out from my body like this. If I attach it to the outside, it makes it hang tight to my body. Just generally works a little bit better, so that straight from where it hangs, I can lift it straight up into a firing position. I prefer it attached to the outside. The downside to this is maneuverability with the rifle. So when I do extend my sling, it's still pretty tight. You know, as an example, I can't transition shoulders. I'm gonna choke myself out. It's, you know, pretty tight. If I want to come in and try to do a reload, I'm really kind of bound up in my sling. So what most guys do, this would be kind of your patrol position, if you will. And if I'm really about to make entry somewhere or get into some action, I'm gonna swim out of it and I just fight from here. with it just around my neck, right? Now I have a lot more maneuverability in there. What I've kind of moved to, and what I really prefer now for my sling setups personally, is this. I run a 2-point, but I run it pretty close together. I'll mention really quickly, this is a great keeper system that works with any slings from our friends at the Neomag. It's called the Sentry Strap. It's just a magnetic strap that goes around the fore end of your rifle, so you can keep your sling stowed while it's in a bag or whatever. It doesn't get tangled up. Whenever you need it, you just grab your sling, yank it open, and I've got it. With my rifle here, with my sling here, attached close to the receiver on my grip and from my sort of castle nut position, if you will, I have a whole lot of flexibility here. It's a lot easier for me to move my stock all over however I need. I can actually switch shoulders if I need to without swinging out of my sling. I can do anything I would want to do with a rifle without coming out of my sling with it set up like this. And when I do tighten it down, it still does a great job of keeping the rifle nice and tight to my body. I can still put it behind me if I need to. It keeps it really nice and tight. I can climb, I can do different things. This is my preferred way to set up this thing right now. Again, there's lots of different ways to set it up. That's my preference. What slings should you buy? There's a lot of good slings out there. You know, most of the ones don't really have anything particular that sets themselves apart. I think, you know, Blue Forest Gear, lots of good slings out there, but they're just kind of a sling, okay? You can get any of those, it's fine. I got a couple of slings here that set themselves apart in a couple unique ways that I'll show you really quickly. This is the one from Neomag, by the way. They make a good sling. You can use our discount code on it, code SPECTRAIN. Has a removable pad, so you can use a pad or not, depending on your preference, and you can swap these out if you're like me and like melt it on your muzzle brake and stuff like that. Pretty cool. Also has a keeper here that kind of buckles into the Sentry Strap, which works pretty cool. One I was just using has a cool feature. This is the one from T-Rex Arms. The cool thing about this is that it has the option to run the buckle adjuster opposite of everybody else. So typically, when I tighten my sling, when I have my sling tight to my body, and now I'm gonna go run it, I have to reach down here and pull back away as I bring the rifle up and then go back to my rifle. This one runs opposite actually, which makes a lot of sense. So when I go to run my rifle, I actually run my hand to my grip in the opposite direction, which makes a lot more sense actually, if you think about it, right? So pretty cool option from them. T-Rex Arms. If you are still not totally sold on 2 points, there are several guys that make slings that allow you to switch back and forth between single point and 1 point as you want. So as you're hiking around or whatever, you can run it in 2 point. If you're about to hit something and you want to switch back to single point, I can do that. Magpul and Haley Strategic make these. I like these a lot. Just a couple examples of different slings set them apart in different ways. There's some, I run a lot. I don't think I actually have it out here. Centrifuge training slings has a pretty cool keeper system that keeps it built in, strapped to your rifle. Lots of good slings. Point out there. Just wanted to give you a couple highlights on that. We already mentioned a little bit in the class optic heights. Okay, so again, the point on optic heights. Some folks run it because, hey, I run gas masks, night vision, that kind of stuff. Getting my optic up nice and high makes it easier to do those things. I have a couple people come up to me and be like, hey man, how much faster are you with it? I'm like, that's not what it is. It's not about seeing your optic faster. It is simply about burying the stock in my shoulder the way that I want it and being able to see through my optic without bringing my head down to the gun. A couple different ways to accomplish that. This is a riser system. Some of you guys have, you know, an optic with a built-in mount or whatever. This is a riser from Unity Tactical. You can put underneath your optic and it just lifts it up. So if you have an optic you like, you can add a riser to it if you want to get a little bit higher. There's different heights to consider. Again, I have optics set up at different heights if you want to try it. You have absolute co-witness, which some of you guys are running right now, which means if you pop up your iron sights or in the center of your glass, you have lower third. I recommend you go with at least lower third on your heights. Lower third means your iron sights will be kind of in the lower third of your glass as you look through your optic. Then you move up to a 193. Both of my LVPOs are on 193 mounts. The reason for that is if I get it up as high as a 226, you know, with the LVPO, I need to make sure my face lands exactly in the same spot behind the scope every single time. And so I want to have that nice cheek weld versus kind of floating up more around here. It's tougher to get aligned on it. So I run my scopes on 193 mounts. Works pretty well for me. And then I run, again, my dots typically at 226 because it gives me that flipped center capability if I want to run magnifier. Make sense? Don't feel like you have to go switch to like a 226 or something. It's just if you want to run a magnifier and you want that flipped center capability, that's how you get it. Unity tactical mount, just a mount alone is like 200 bucks for an Optic. So they're pretty proud of their stuff, but it has that functionality if you want. I think that has pretty much covered what I wanted to cover with regards to rifles. Any other questions on gear? Yes, sir.
Could you address ACOGs as compared to other sets?
Absolutely. ACOGs used to be really, really cool. They were one of the first kind of bomb-proof optics that came out. I mean, these things are made out of glass, guys. And so when we first started making scopes out of glass, they were not very durable. And of course, one of the concerns that folks had when we started strapping optics to guns instead of iron sights was, well, they're just going to break. And they did break. The ACOG is an extremely durable optic. The problem is it's fixed magnification. Now, can I train myself to use an ACOG at close distances and run it? You know, yes, theoretically, right? Is it going to be as easy? Is it going to be as fast as a no magnification option like a red dot? Absolutely not. So, if you are a Marine who is jumping out of helicopters in Afghanistan and most of your engagements are 300 meters, maybe an ACOG is a good idea for you. If you are a civilian or pretty much anyone who's operating stateside, it's probably not. It's probably not. That's my opinion. Fair enough. Any other questions? Anything else we should address?
Talk about weapon mounted lights at all?
I did not, but it's probably a good idea too. Yes, sir. What else you got?
Is there any option? Do you offer any of that information detailed either via video or like PDF or anything?
I am working on videos as we speak. I
see that. Yeah.
Well, it does that, yeah. I've actually just started the Black Rifle series. I'm calling it the Black Rifle series on YouTube right now on our YouTube channel. I started at the muzzle device, and I've gotten back to optics, which is the next one's gonna be coming out, as well as some of these kind of videos. So I'm working on that now. Weapon mounted lights. So it's kind of important, guys, to be able to see what you're shooting at. I don't know, if you noticed that, but you got to see stuff to shoot stuff. And weapon mounted lights, especially with rifles, super, super important. The reason I didn't bring it up before is there's just not a whole lot to say about it. But basically what you're going to want to do is figure out some way to get a quality weapon mounted light that mounts to your rifle. It needs to be quality because for a few reasons. Number one, it's going to take some abuse if it's on a rifle. Take this rifle as an example, guys. I've been running this mod light right next to this absolutely brutal break from VG6 forever now, and this mod light just takes it like a champ. I've literally never had a single problem out of this light. You can see how smoked it is. I have to wipe the lens off every once in a while, but other than that, it's good to go. Your normal flashlight is not going to do that, so you need a quality weapon mounted light. The cheapest weapon mounted light I would get is the Streamlight HLX. You can get an HLX kit for like 80 to 100 bucks, and it comes with a tape switch.
Lifetime warranty too.
1,000 lumen light. I've broken a lot of Streamlights. Like you say, it's a lifetime warranty. They'll replace it for you. And then I would have no problem running on my rifle. Second, so that would kind of be my third choice, but maybe my first choice depending on budget. Second choice right there is Surefire. They make a really quality light as well. The M600, Scout lights, really quality. And then what I run personally right now is the mod lights. Again, that's kind of a premium option, but if you really want something that's going to just blind somebody from 2 states away, it really does work. It's a super impressive light. If it gets dark here at the end of the day, we can maybe demo that. But they by far, in my opinion, the best light heads on the market right now. If you are currently running a Surefire and you want that, they actually make as long as it's dual fuel, you can put a mod light head on your Surefire as well. So there's different options like that. But anyway, does it cover weapon mounted lights? Okay. Oh, other thing really quickly. So generally speaking, I like to have a tape switch is how I activate the light, right? So I got a button here on top. Most tape switches, depending on what you run, will give you momentary only. So in other words, while I'm pressing the button, it's on. As soon as I let it go, it's off. Can I come up with a situation where I would need constant? I can come up with a situation where I would need constant, but it's pretty rare and I don't need it now, usually. So what I do is I run the Surefire tail caps that give me that constant on clicky button. So, you know, in the event that I'm doing most of my work, it's going to be momentary on the tape switch. In the event that I need to like make a cell phone call or something while I'm holding somebody or whatever, I can switch to constant with the tail cap, use my other hand for what I need to use it for, right? But that's kind of, it's also just kind of a second line of failure. In the event my tape switch, you know, my wire gets cut or melts or something goes wrong with the tape switch, I have a second way to run my light if I need to. That's kind of how I set it up. Oh, somebody asked about grips earlier as well. So what kind of grip you need on your rifle depends on how long the rifle is, okay? So depending on how short this is, it's gonna change my wrist angle. For me, if my rifle is really short, my wrist angle is like this, I probably need a vertical foregrip. As I come out a little bit farther, it makes sense to have an angled foregrip. As I come out a little bit farther, I just grab my handrail, right? So depending on how short your rifle is, where you have to put your hand on the rifle is gonna determine what you need. This is unnecessary. I'm just gonna tell you right now, you don't have to have this. All this is doing for me is it's making sure I'm consistent. I'm putting my hand in the same spot every time. If my hand's like super sweaty or something, it's making sure I don't slide down my rail. But it's also a barricade stop, right? So in the event I need to get into a barricade or something, I can actually load into it a little bit using that hand stop. That's all that's for. If you need an angled hand stop, Magpul is pretty much still the name of the game there. I like these kits a lot. Give me a little bit of angle on there. If I need to come to a vertical, they're all the same. Get whatever color is your favorite. There's no real difference there. Okay, guys, I think that kind of wraps us up on gear for the day. Unless there's a last chance, any questions on that? Yes, sir.
Magnifiers.
Yep.
Check out the different various brands. So, is it the same or there's a great deal of variability?
Not nearly as much variability as scopes. A magnifier kind of is a magnifier. There's a lot of folks making good ones. Aimpoint, Vortex are probably the two leaders in the magnifier space right now. Also, EOTech makes some really good magnifiers as well. There's a couple things that set them aside. You're looking at how much magnification do you want. Generally, your choices are like 3 or 6, and that's pretty much what you're looking at. The reason that I chose the one I did is for 2 reasons. Number one, this is the Aimpoint 3XC. A couple cool things about this. Number one, it's a really quality magnifier at a very affordable price. I think this one's like $300, something like that. You know, for the normal aim points or whatever, you're looking at like 600. So I like this a lot. Also, this one, and I have verified this, does not require to be zeroed. I don't know how that works. I really don't. Normally with your magnifiers, you have to zero them. As I was talking about earlier, I take this one off and on this rifle a good bit. And so although it's a quality mount, I like the fact that this one generally works without having to be re-zeroed. So that's a cool thing with the Aimpoint 3XC. But other than that, it kind of is what it is. Really quickly on magnifier setup, the reason that I have mine set up this way, as far as with the gap in between here, with your magnifiers, you do have an eye relief issue. So even with my magnifier all the way back, if I'm gonna use it from my normal stance, I have to slide my head forward to about there to actually see all the way through it. So generally you wanna put your magnifier as far back as you possibly can. When I'm not using my magnifier, I prefer my main optic to be as far forward as I can get it on the receiver. Simple reason, the farther forward I get it, the less space in my field of view the optic body takes up, okay? People seem to think that when you mount a magnifier and an optic, they have to be touching. They do not. There is no reason they cannot have a gap in between them. So if you want to set it up that way, you absolutely can, and there's no problem there. Did that answer that question, brother? Cool. As the other reason I have this, until now, Aimpoint was the only magnifier that would work with the Unity mount. They actually just came out with some adapters for EOTech and for Vortex. So you can run all 3 of those with the Unity mount if you want to.
Cool stickers on the
Thanks, man.
How much accuracy is that at?